New Orleans Police Department versus unarmed civilians, the Danziger Bridge, 19th years later.
Of New Orleans.
If you want to understand what the looting panic turns into, here is a terrifying story.
Nearly empty, still partly underwater, and waiting for life and hope to return.
Welcome to another episode of InRange. Yes, this is a republication of a video that I filmed 9 years ago. I sat on this footage for 4 years and wasn't sure what to do with it, and published it in 2020, realizing that these things needed to be talked about more, not less, especially with the events going on in that year. And this video is being republished on the 19th anniversary of the events discussed in this video. And 19 years later, it's hard to look around and say that anything's really gotten better. All the men that were ostensibly police officers that killed these people and maimed a family are now out and free. And situations like this are recurring over and over and over again. And if another disaster like Katrina were to happen again today, I don't think it would be any different. And that's a problem. And that's an issue we need to face, and a situation in which we have to understand that there's something wrong when agents of the state can come and kill you based on your color, your identity, whether or not you own a gun, whether or not they think you might have had a gun or not, whether you do or don't, and then do things like try to cover it up with, quote, a ham sandwich or a drop gun, or worse, don't even try to cover it up and realize that qualified immunity and the system will protect them.
Don't be afraid of being sued. Everybody gets sued. Just a chance for overtime.
Philology.
Now, did some of these men serve some time in prison? Yes. Did they serve the time that you or I would have received for doing what they did? Absolutely not. So in this instance, when we hear Lieutenant Colonel Grossman talk about how they are the samurai, well, he's right. They are held at a higher rank than the rest of us.
I saw on Twitter that your house burned down. Is that true? What do you think? Does it look like it's burned down? Am I streaming from the ashes?
Civilians here in this country, and the militarization of the police, and the situations that are occurring within it, and the systemic problems that are occurring because of it, continue 19 years later. I hope you watch this video. I hope you think about the fact that this is still going on today, and take a moment to remember the lives lost on that day, on September 4th, 2005, when people were just trying to find some water in a natural disaster that was actually man-made due to the inefficiency of the U.S. government in protecting the city with its levees, and corporations allowing derricks to crash through levees and flood entire neighborhoods here. If you want to learn more about that, check this video above regarding the Battle of New Orleans. Anyways, a somber note on a somber day, 19 years later. Please watch. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of InRange. This is a difficult topic today.
During Katrina, we were out of power and listening to a radio news report from a NG helicopter flying over NOLA. The reporter was talking about the floods until we heard shots, and one of the NG goons said, "I got that," and the broadcast cut out. Stuck with me to this day.
And the footage you're going to see was filmed 4 years ago. Yes, 4 years ago. And the reason I've been sitting on this video content is because I haven't been sure when I could publish it. The reality is that I've been waiting for an opportunity to publish this video in which it would not be seen in the light of the current situation or current events, because people would think that I'm publishing this in response to a current event. And the reality is there's never been a chance in 4 years to publish this video where it wouldn't be.
You said the fear of living your day-to-day life is dumb. That why do you talk about how systemic racism still exists, which people fear any interaction with a cop, which definitely isn't healthy? Okay, I don't think you understand. Think about it like the statistical likelihood of something bad happening to you. Okay, if police and police presence disproportionately harm people of color, there is a high likelihood of an interaction turning south with a cop, especially when the structures have allowed a police officer to do whatever they want to you. Okay? On the other hand, given that you are surrounded by hundreds of thousands of people living in a densely packed city environment on a day-to-day basis, the likelihood of you being a victim of a crime is infinitely lower in any random interaction. There's a reasonable fear to have, or a reasonable assessment, and an unreasonable one. That's the argument that I'm making. Okay? Struck by lightning, they get killed by a cop. That's really interesting that you said that, because I wasn't talking about a police just killing you. Okay? Also, how many people die by lightning every... Wait, there is no way that's true. How many people die by lightning every year in the U.S.? Because you are so incredibly wrong. Okay? There are 100 times more people that die in the hands of cops than get killed by lightning. Why did you say that? Lightning every year in the United States of America, 2,000 people die by cops. Let's see, police killings in... Oh, it's not because of race. Wait, what? That's crazy. So you just put forth a completely ridiculous number and then immediately got disproven and then moved on to say, oh, that's not the case. I was like, it's just stupid. Stop. It's not about race. It's not about race at all. It's not 2,000. It's 1,000. I apologize. So not 100 times more, 50 times. Police kill, give or take, every single year. Bro. 50,000 civilian injuries are caused by law enforcement officers annually. 15% of civilians who experience police use of force during legal interventions are injured by law enforcement officers. It's not just about if someone dies, is likely not because of race. Oh my God. I don't know why you're in here trying to argue something that I wasn't even saying. This is like what you are trying to argue. Okay. Police are disproportionately more police have a higher likelihood and even you and arresting you. Okay. If you are not white. That's it.
Seen as a commentary on a current... I'm going to give up on that idea because it's never going to happen, and I'm going to publish it because I think it's important to be published. One of the topics that I, Carl, cover here on InRangeTV are issues of historical significance that I believe are intentionally left out of the general population's narrative, culturally lost, whether it is Old West or modern. Things that have been intentionally left off of the general understanding is something that I believe should be brought to light because it's those topics that really give us insight into society, whether it's historical or current. And the one that I'm covering today is about the murder of a number of innocent and unarmed civilians on Danziger Bridge, September 4th, 2005, just a few days after Hurricane Katrina. And while you are inevitably going to paint this in the light of whatever current event is going on today, whether you're watching it right now in May of 2020 or watching it in November of 2025, I have an unsettling feeling that there'll be something going on in this country that will make you think that this video was published in response to that, and that is not the case. I also am going to dub in moments through this video, things that I have been able to find out more after the fact and hopefully correct the narrative. The other thing that I do want you to understand is that this is wholly my work.
Okay, I'm not gonna watch this whole thing. It's about I think it's not argument, but I think it's like directly talking about the bridge. They're directly talking about the Danziger Bridge shootings is probably a better do it. On the morning of September 4, 2005, Hurricane Katrina struck New Orleans. Members of the New Orleans Police Department, ostensibly responding to a call from an officer under fire, shot and killed 2 civilians at the Danziger Bridge, a 17-year-old James Brissett and a 40-year-old Ronald Mason. 4 other civilians were wounded. All the victims were black. None were armed or had committed any crime. Madison, a mentally disabled man, was shot in the back. The shootings caused public anger and further eroded the community trust of the New Orleans Police Department and the federal response to Hurricane Katrina overall. The New Orleans Police Department, of course, predictably attempted to cover up the killings, falsely reporting that 7 police officers responded to a police dispatch reporting an officer down, and that at least 4 suspects were firing weapons at the officers upon their arrival. Reverend Raymond Brown, the local head of the National Action Network, described the shootings as a racial tragedy. On August 5th, 2011, a federal jury in New Orleans convicted 5 NOPD officers of myriad charges of cover-up and deprivation of civil rights. An attorney for the U.S. Justice Department described the case as the most significant police misconduct prosecution in the U.S. since the Rodney King beating case. However, the convictions were vacated on September 17, 2013 by U.S. District Judge Kurt Engel prosecutorial misconduct, and a new trial was ordered. The Justice Department appealed the decision to vacate the convictions, but a federal appeals court agreed that a new trial was warranted. On April 20th, 2016, the 5 former officers pleaded guilty to various charges related to the shooting and in return received reduced ranging from 3 to 12 years in prison. 3 of the officers are white and 2 are black. Officers arrived in a budget rental truck. None of them were in uniform. Was unauthorized and an M4 carbine. A witness, Casimir Gaston, described the officers as lining up like at a firing range. The officers opened fire without warning on the Bartholomew family and friend who had been walking to a grocery store and were then sheltering behind a concrete barrier. As a result of this initial shooting, 17-year-old James Brissett, a family friend, was killed. 4 other civilians was partially shot off and later had to be amputated. Her husband Leonard was shot in the back, head, and foot. The Bartholomew's teenage daughter Alicia was shot 4 times. Jose Holmes Jr., a friend of Brissett's, was shot in the abdomen, the hand, and the jaw. 2 brothers who fled the scene, Ronald and Lance Madison, were pursued down the bridge by officers Gisevius and Falcon in an unmarked Louisiana State Police vehicle. Falcon fired his shotgun from the back of the car at Ronald, a developmentally disabled man who later died from his injuries. The autopsy found that Ronald sustained 7 gunshot wounds, 5 of them in his back. Bowen was later convicted of stomping Madison on the back before he died, though this conviction was overturned for a lack of physical evidence. Lance was then taken into custody and charged with 8 counts of attempting to kill police officers. Held in custody for 3 weeks before being released without indictment. No weapons were recovered at the scene, and both police and civilian witnesses testified that the victims had been unarmed. They basically set out to engage in a paramilitary death squad. Police officers not even using their service weapons, using their own personal guns, because they go out and shoot and kill what they perceived to get free kills, legal kills on what they perceived. Okay? American hero Chris Kyle, American hero in air quotes, Chris Kyle also lied about sniping black people off of the top of the Superdome. Okay? Sniping what he called looters, getting confirmed kills. This was, of course, not real. And it was crazy that he thought that this would make him look good. He was never actually even, there were no repercussions for him even lying about committing this racist act of violence. Many years after, he still got a wonderful little movie about his completely made up record. At that point, you can't even call it stealing valor. I would say that he was stealing vices. He was lying about engaging in a racialized lynching.